Step right up and see the world's greatest AniMay17, your daily dose of anime every day in May. Today's show is the 2002 action comedy magical shopping arcade Abenobashi. I was ready to fall in love with Abenobashi. I was ready for it to be an undiscovered gem, and it had all the hallmarks of my favorite anime of all time, FLCL. It was produced by the same studio, Gainax. It's an irreverent comedy show with stylish action set pieces, stunning character design, particularly the cutest female protagonist I've seen to date, and a strong underlying plot tackling complex themes. And the first episode delivers! Abenobashi Shotengai means the Abenobashi Shopping Arcade, essentially an outdoor shopping mall twisting and turning through a number of residential blocks. The main characters, Arumi and Sashi, both live in the arcade with their extended families and spend a lot of their time wandering the market and talking to the vendors. The very first scene shows Sashi sulking amidst the ruins of his old apartment complex, lamenting the loss of all his geek-related possessions he had to leave behind in the move. Right off the bat, the show establishes the major theme of loss and progress, to which Arumi chimes in with,
"Being human, having your health, that's the most important thing."
The episode goes on to repeat this theme with the further encroachment of construction and signs that the shopping arcade will be closing down. Even Arumi's father will be relocating the family for his new career out of town. So immediately we have a relatable scenario with a likable cast torn apart by circumstance. I already liked Arumi a whole lot in this first episode, and I was heartbroken at the idea of her and her family moving away and leaving Sashi in the dust of this rundown neighborhood. The show tackles issues that don't have easy solutions, especially for a kid, which is a level of complexity that I really admire about other Gainax shows. Something that put me off a little at the beginning were the choices for voice actors, particularly in the English dub, which was the first one I listened to. The characters live in a non-wealthy area, so they chose to go with kind of Southern American accents. Now, I've seen this phenomenon before, like the character Osaka from Azumanga Daioh. She's nicknamed after the Osaka region of Japan where she comes from, and as such has a distinctly more rural-sounding dialect for Japanese standards. So naturally, for English releases, she adopts a more rural accent, and even though the characters are clearly Japanese and using Japanese terminology, they speak in like a southern drawl. It seemed like a bizarre decision and was actively distracting for me on my first viewing, but I grew to like it a little more than the original Japanese just because it was so unique. On the topic of strange accent choices, Arumi's father is this wannabe French chef character who talks in this outrageous accent and sprinkles his dialogue with random French words. Un sang l'étoile? But it's even weirder hearing the Japanese French accent, so whatever. It's a weird show. Then things crank up a notch when Arumi's grandpa falls off the building and almost dies right in front of them, right after it's been established that Sashi is as close to Masa as he is to his own grandpa. Again, emphasizing this loss and progress that forces Masa to give up, close the restaurant, and leave with his son and his family. Really high emotional stakes in the opening episode that really hooked me into a believable world with interesting characters dealing with hard topics. But believe me, believable is the last word this show strives to be after this point. For not yet explained reasons, Arumi and Sashi are thrust into a series of vaguely geeky interpretations of their home and families. A video gamey fantasy world, a sci-fi world, a martial arts world, all of which take place in alternate Abenobashi shopping districts featuring their loved ones as gussied-up one-note caricatures of their complex originals. The show then devolves into a streamlined, uninteresting comedic barrage. Any notions of a deep emotional narrative go out the window in favor of juvenile humor and sexualized slapstick. No joke, it feels like a totally different show. Stripped of any of its self-reflective tone, Abenobashi barrels headlong through contrived set pieces and near-constant titty jokes. I'm not inherently opposed to this kind of nonsensical parody or immature humor, but the delivery feels like a slap in the face right after getting my hopes up with episode 1. It was like, you didn't really care about all that sentimental setup stuff, right? You want boobs and panty shots for 20 minutes, right? No, show, I didn't. The show drops any pretense of emotional stakes or character growth for gags, and I didn't find a second of it funny, and actively disliked most of it. I wouldn't feel so burned if the show hadn't teased me with such a good opening. The signs were there for a compelling show, but there were definitely signs of an immature one as well. Although not a show I'd personally recommend, I feel a strong desire to see this one out to the end to get to the bottom of things, even if I hate every minute of it. Because I know the studio is capable and there's enough there to keep me interested, but I was very disappointed. Let's just hope we get thrust into a better show next time. Stay tuned for more AniMay17.